Fine. So where exactly we stopped? Right. Okay. So just basic about VBScript, right? So just recap that what exactly we have discussed. It's a Microsoft product. That means okay, VBScript has come from Microsoft. It's a Microsoft language, and this VBScript is derived from not the programming language called VBScript, right? So Visual Basic. So Visual Basic is one of the programming language which was used very widely earlier, but we had certain problem in integrating the Visual Basic with HTML. So that's the reason what they had done is they have taken the logic from the Visual Basic, and then they have derived or they have defined a lightweight language called VBScript. So in VBScript, VB stands for Visual Basic only, okay? And VB has got into three ways. One is a common Visual Basic programming language, and there is one more thing called VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, that is VBA, and VBScript. Okay, Visual Basic for Applications, VBA, generally we use it for defining the Excel macros, not only in Excel macros, probably in Word, all this. So to define the macros and all, we use VBA. Okay, and VBScript is a scripting language, not a programming language. We understood the differences between scripting and programming language, right? Okay, so based on the differences, then the scripting language, VBScript comes under scripting language category. Then, so mainly it's VBScript mainly use it for web-based development, but since automation tools are adapted to Visual Basic, now VBScript, not all the automation tools, some of the automation tools. Then, so we also use VBScript for automation. Then, so it's VBScript is not a case-sensitive language, but this point is not applicable when we are comparing the values. When it comes to the values, this point is not applicable. The reason because when it comes to the method names or when it comes to the variable names or function names, all this, then VBScript will take the names as text comparison mode. But when it comes to the values will be taken in binary comparison mode. Okay, so that's the reason VBScript is case sensitive, is not a case sensitive when it comes to the names and all, but case sensitive when it comes to the values. Okay, fine. Now, so next part is you may get the question saying that why should I learn the VBScript, right? Why only the VB? There are other languages we have, like we have Java, we have JavaScript, and we have .NET, and why we need to learn VBScript? Why not other languages? So maybe that might be the question. Then when it comes to this, then okay, you can say like, because VBScript is one of the common language which is used by various automation tools. So why we are here? Okay, to learn the testing, right? So to do the testing. So when we do the testing, okay, so maybe manual or automation, whatever it is, right? So when you say manual, you don't need to have any programming language. You don't need to do. But when you're doing automation, what is meant by automation usually is generally, okay, we will have the automation tools, we have the tools, and then we instruct the tools to perform the certain actions, or we instruct the tool to perform certain validations. Okay, we don't do the manual, and I will tell you this is what you need to do, and then later whenever I say execute, then you perform these actions or do this kind of validations and all. That's what you do in the automation. Then how do you instruct the tool? Then by using certain languages. It cannot understand the words what you say. Tool cannot understand the words when you speak, it cannot understand. But only thing is how you need to instruct through programs. Okay, so like we have various automation tools, okay, available in the market, but not all the tools use VBScript. Okay, so some of the tools VBScript, some of the tools use Java. Okay, so different tools are there. Each tool has got its own language, like supporting language, maybe VBScript or maybe Java. These two are common things, Java or VBScript, most widely used languages. Okay, so now since we choose to learn QTP or UFT, and UFT mainly supports the VBScript. Okay, and there are some other tools called Vatir, or there is some other tool called Test Complete. These tools also uses VBScript. So since some of the tools, many of the tools uses VBScript, then we started learning VBScript. Why we are not going to the tool directly? Because Okay, when we learn the tool directly, we can become the expertise on one tool, no problem. But thing is, if you don't understand the logics behind the tool or whatever the programs that we write inside it, if you don't understand those programs, if you don't know how we can build those programs, how we can build the logics and all, then you can be expertise on the tool, that's it. But tomorrow if somebody gives a different tool which uses the common language, since okay, you have not learned the language, you have learned only the tool, right? Then understanding a different tool will become very difficult for you. But if you understand the logic, if you understand the program, or if you understand this language, then no matter which tool it is, okay, give me any tool which uses VBScript, then I'm good enough to work on that particular tool. I don't need to have a separate training, or I don't need to take too much time to adapt to the tool. This is what the market expectation also. Market expectation is now, okay, we don't need a person who works, who restrict to only this tool. I say, okay, I know QTP, I'll work only on QTP, and if you give me other tools, then I will not work. Fine, I will take you only when I get the project for QTP. But will you give guarantee that, okay, I will get project only for QTP? No. Since there are a lot of tools available, then my client may opt to a different tool tomorrow. So when I get a project which runs on a different tool, or which will use different tool, then probably I'm not fit into that when I restrict to only QTP, right? So that's the reason we should not restrict to only the tool. But when I know the programming language, then understanding the tool is not a big difficult. I will just understand the features of the tool. But inside those tools, I will use the same language. Any tool, whatever it is, you take, I told test two tools, QTP and test complete, or UFT. QTP is now changed as UFT. So, okay, we call it as an UFT. So, UFT and test complete, both uses the same scripting language, VBScript. Now, if I know the VBScript, I am good enough to work on these two tools. But instead of learning VBScript, if I directly learn UFT, right, I understand the features of UFT, I understand how recording and all happens and all in the tool. If I learn only QTP, tomorrow if I get a project for test complete, then I'm not fit into that, right? Because again I need to write some programs inside that, but I have not learned the program. Again I need to spend a lot of time to learn that particular tool. But to avoid that, what you need to do is, first we need to become the expertise on the tool. We need to become the expertise on the script, not on the tool first. So once you become the expertise on the script, then you will automatically become the expertise on the tool within less time. That is what the intention is. So why we are learning VBScript, not the tool directly? Because we have to expertise in the programs, how we can build the programs and all, so that I can cover various tools. Okay. Then also VB. So whatever we are learning in VBScript now. So this VB we don't need to restrict only to automate. So tomorrow if we need to write some macros and all in Excel. Okay. Tomorrow once you grow up with the experience, right? Probably you need to build a lot of reports. You need to prepare a lot of reports and all. So mainly reports will be generated in Excel. You fill the data in Excel. Reports and all should be generated automatically and all. So for that, to build the reports automatically, we need to write the macros and all. Okay, so those macros also use the same kind of scripting whatever we learn now VBScript. And at the same time, okay, tomorrow if somebody says that no, I don't want to use any tool because tools are commercial and I cannot buy the license and all, then you give me a simple thing. Okay, I have Internet Explorer with me, I want to automate the application. Then okay, so VBScript can be used to automate directly the application without using any tool. You can automate the application, web application, only web application, remember that too. When the application runs in Internet Explorer, you can automate it directly. So we have various advantages with VBScript. Okay, so all these things we are going to learn. Okay, once we complete the scripting part, all these things we are going to learn. So why we need to learn VBScript? Why not other languages? Because of this. Since okay, we opted to learn, we opted for UFT, we opted for QTP. Then since QTP uses VBScript, then we need to. And why not tool? Why we need to learn program and then go to the tool? Before we go to the tool, first we understand the logics behind the tools and all, so that any tool will be easy for me. So tomorrow suddenly, okay, if somebody asks you, now I don't want QTP because my project is running on a different tool. no problem, no need to worry about that. Okay, I'm good at programming. You give me any tool, no problem. Since we need to write only the programs inside, I can write the programs. Okay, so that's what the expectation is. That is the reason why we are learning the VBScript. Okay, now next, we don't know anything. Many of the people come from the different backgrounds. Here itself, some of the people have come from different background. We don't know the scripting. We never seen the scripting before, or we have never programmed. Fine. So then it might be a worry for them. Okay, so we are saying we need to write the programs and all. Then we never seen or we never written the program, or my background is little different. Then is it difficult for me? How can I do? Then you don't need to worry. Okay, you don't need to worry about that. So VBScript is one of the simplest languages that we do have. In the out of all the languages, VBScript is one of the simplest languages. So you can easily learn that. So we will be learning from basic. We will be learning from the basic. So it's not a difficult point for you to learn, even though you have come from a different background. Okay, and you have never programmed earlier. No need to worry about that. Okay, so but only thing is how you learn. You just have to spend a little time on that. Okay, so you just have to dedicate some time for it, whatever we discussed here. Okay, so if you can spend some time, then it won't be any difficult. You don't need to worry, okay, about the programming. Okay, so then just move into the VBScript. Then what is the first concept in VBScript? Data types. First we are done with the basics, right? So the first concept is basics of VBScript, and we have already learnt what is meant by VBScript and all. Okay, so the next part is the data type. So very first thing, before we understand the programs and all, first we need to understand the data types. What is meant by a data type? This question is for the people who already know a little bit of program. Maybe any language. Don't just think only about VBScript. Any language, it could be a Java, it could be a .NET, or it could be any other language, whatever you know, data types are there. In any language, we have the data types. So what is meant by a data type? Any idea? It's a classification of a particular type of data or information. Information is nothing but a data. Okay, so whatever the information that we need to feed into your application or into the variables, whatever the type. So this data type will classify what kind of data that we need to feed. Okay, name itself says data type. The name itself says type of the data that we need to, or type of the data or information that a variable or a field should accept or can contain. What kind of value that we need to pass. That's what data type means for. It's a regular term. It's not a technical term, it's a regular. A data type is nothing but the type of the data which we need to pass, or when I have a variable in my program, or when I have certain fields in my application, then what kind of what kind of value this particular field should allow, or what kind of value this particular variable should accept. Should I accept all the values, or should it accept only a particular value? Okay. Now, so there are certain examples of data types. A string is one of the data type. Like, okay, when you pass a character, when you pass the characters or alpha characters or alphanumerics, all alpha characters or alphanumerics or special characters will be taken as string values. Numerics, numbers, okay, and date is another type of value that we pass, and boolean, true or false, then empty or null. All these are like various types of various data types that we do have. These are global to the languages. Numeric again can be, numeric is not a data type directly. Numeric has got various types like, byte or integer. There are, okay, those are coming up next. So a data type is nothing but the type of the value which we pass or which we use in our or which we need to pass to the variable, or which we need to pass to the type of the data which we need to pass to the variable, or type of the data which that variable should accept or a field should accept. That's it. Okay. Now let's take an example and just understand how exactly that particular data type works. Now let's take the form. I have one of the form called user form. Okay, I do have. So maybe some application form or something that I need to fill out. Now when I take this form, it has got various fields, right? So it has got the first name, it has got the last name, it has got the age and all. Now let's take the data DOB field. Okay. So when I take the DOB field, now when I want to pass the value into that field, what type of value that I have to pass, how that format should be, or how the data type should be date only, right? So that field should accept only the date values, no other values should be accepted, right? So what I need to do is, that particular field, whatever it is, I have to define that field as a date type, so that that field allows only the date values. But if that field allows any different value other than dates, then that should be a problem, right? So now what you can see is, data type of that particular field is date. Similarly here, age. Okay, age should allow only numeric values, right? So that field should be numeric. But when you send first name or last name, that can be a string value, right? Alpha, that can be alpha character, so that should be a string value. Similarly here, when it comes to the gender, only one can be selected at a time, right? So either it can be true or false, that's it. Either male or female. I have only option here. So that is Boolean. True or false, yes or no, like this. So I will give two values, out of that only one it has to be, right? And mobile number, it's a numeric again. So like this, when I have the certain fields like this, I need to define what kind of data that particular field should allow, depends on the situation. That is called data type exactly. Got it? Okay. So now when you take other languages, you got it, right? So what exactly mean by data type? So a type of data that field should accept, or a type of data when I define a variable, okay, what kind of value that variable should accept, what kind of value it should not accept. Then, so we just understood how the data type exactly. Let me know if I am going little fast, but these are little important. Basics are very important before we go into advanced. If you fail to understand the basics, even advanced also, we cannot understand much. So if I am going little fast, you can just stop me and then you can ask me back again, no problem. Now, so what we need to understand is, we got the data type and I just told some of the data types, right? Then is it the same data types that what we use in VBScript, or is VBScript has got some different? Okay, same data types, or VBScript has got different? Then when you ask the same question to me, yes, VBScript has got little different compared with other languages. Okay, so compare with Java or .NET or any other languages, VBScript has got little different in data types. So in other languages, we have the data types like, okay, string. Whenever you use a variable, you must have to define that variable as a string, so that that variable allows only the string values. Or when I want to use a variable to pass the value for date field, then that variable should be defined as a date, so that that variable will accept only the date value, like this. But in VBScript, we have only one data type, in VBScript, not like other languages. In other languages we have too many data types, but in VBScript we have only one data type. That is called as variant. Whatever is highlighted there, here. Okay, so whatever it is highlighted, variant. So VBScript has got only one data type, that is called variant. What is mean by variant? Variant is a combination of all the data types, whatever we have discussed, whatever we have seen, string, boolean, numeric, or date, or an empty, null, or object also one of the data type. So a variant is a combination of all these data types. So when you define a variable as a variant, then that variable will accept any kind of value that whatever you pass. You can pass a string value, or you can pass a date value, or you can pass a numeric value, or any value you can pass to the variant. Remember that this is very important in interviews. Okay, so in interview directly question is what is a variant, or what are the data types available in VBScript. That is a interview question. How many data types, or what are the data types available in VBScript. So in VBScript we have only one data type, that's called variant, and variant is nothing but combination of all the data types that what we do have. Okay, now variant is that's a default type, as I told. So variant will be further converted into different types based on the type of the data which has been passed to the variable. That means if you pass a string value, then that variable will be automatically converted into string. Or when you pass a numeric value, that variable will be automatically converted into that type. But it's by default a variable is a variant. That's it. Okay. Now, when I say it's a variant, in the previous form we have got certain fields, right? Now if I define every field as a variant, now say for example DOB I have, so that field should be a date. But if that field, if I define as a variant, what happens? It allows any kind of value. But should it allow? No, it should not. So when I make that as a variant, then my scenario will fail here, because my user requirement is that has to take only field date value. No other value should be accepted. So if I keep that field as a variant, then it will fail. Scenario will be failed. User requirement will not match here. So that's the reason what they have done is depends on certain situations. Okay, mandatory situations. A variable further can be defined into subtypes. Now by default I will make as a variable, but if you say that okay, no, that variable should not accept any other values other than numeric, or that variable should not allow any other value other than boolean, then what I can do is, okay, no problem, I have the variant with me and I can convert this variant into subtype. So now whatever we have seen, string, numeric, or boolean, or date, or object, null, all this become subtypes of the variables, not the main types. Remember, in other languages these types are main types of the variables, main data types. But when it comes to the VBScript, main data type is a subtype. Main data type is a subtype. Okay, and you don't need to define as like a string or anything. But in case if your requirement clearly says that no, that should not be a variant, that should not allow any other values, it should accept only the numeric value, then okay, you convert into subtype. You can convert. In case required, then you can convert. Otherwise, not required. It can remain in variant type. You got what I am saying here? Okay. So when certain situations are there, so that they have given So to avoid this, VBScript provides us the option to convert the variant into other subtypes like string, byte or any other. Okay. Now let's understand some of the subtypes that we do have for the variant in VBScript. Okay. So whatever you see there, there are the subtypes of the variables. Whatever you see there. So like empty. Okay. So empty is, it contains the empty value. Memory difference between empty and null, both are look similar, right? But difference between empty and null is empty contains the memory but no value will be contained. Okay. But whereas null doesn't contain any memory and any variables. So that means when the variable is null, you can consider that as a dead variable. A variable is set to null, that means you can consider a variable as a dead variable. So no memory will be there for the null. Similarly, we have some other things like byte, integer and currency, long and double. Depends on the range, all these are numeric types. Depends on the range of the number that you give, then that will set to value. So now when you say byte also one of the numeric type. When the number is 0 to 255, we call that as a byte value in VBScript. Or when the variable is, when the value is minus 32,768 plus 768 to 767, then that value will come under integer range. Similarly, you have currency, you have long, double, single, like this. Depends on the number range. Okay, so it's difficult to say those numbers. Okay, so depends on the range of the numbers. We have various data. These are the subtypes. Depends on what value that you need to pass to the variable, then you can convert this variable into this kind of subtypes. Okay. Now we will discuss about these subtypes and all later. Okay. So once we start using the variables and all, and once we start discussing about the scenarios and all, you will automatically learn these subtypes, how we can use them. But this is just a info. Okay. What kind of subtypes that we do have. Right. So you got what is meant by subtype? So, sorry, data type. A data type is nothing but just a type of variable. It's a type of data which a field or which a variable should accept, or the type of data which we have to pass. In other languages, let's say for example, okay, when I need to fill a form, or when I'm using a variables, how you define the variable? You say string variable or date variable. When you do like this, then that variable will accept only date value. When you say date variable, if you try to pass a different value, then immediately it will throw you error saying that okay, you are passing invalid data for this variable, because you declared this variable as a date, so that I can accept only the date values, no other values I can accept here. Okay, so that's how it is, data types will work. But in VBScript we have only one type of data, that means variant. That means you don't need to define the variable as okay, string variable or date variable, boolean variable. You don't need to do that. Okay, so whenever you define a variable, this variant type will be automatically set for that. In case if you have a requirement saying that no, it should not accept any all the type of values, it should accept only this type of value, then you can still have an option to convert this variant. Remember, by default variant needs to be converted into subtypes. Directly you cannot make the variable as a string or as a boolean. You cannot directly do that. First it has to be variant and then it has to be converted into subtype. Okay, you got that till here? Okay, fine. Now we have discussed about data type and got it. While discussing about data type, we discussed about the variable also. I just told something about, we use variables and all. Then you might have a question saying that what is meant by a variable? Then anybody? Which contains the data, right? Exactly. A variable is a named memory location. So that means there will be some memory created in the language, not in, just don't think about whatever I am discussing now. It's not related to only VBScript. Okay, so any language it is common. A variable is nothing but it's a memory location where we can store the values, some values. Why we need to store the values? To use them in our program later. Okay, to use them in our program. So, to store the values in a memory and to use them in a program. So this memory location is called as variable, and we'll just give a name for that particular memory location. So when we give a name, that will become as a variable. That's it. Also, other name is container. It's just a container which contains the data. It's a memory location, named memory location, or it's a container. That's it. Then why do we use the variables? Because what happens is many times, okay, when I use a value, you have two options always. Whenever we are writing a program, we have two things. One is hard coding. Second one is parameterizing. Always two things that we need to understand. Hard coding or parameterizing. What is the difference between these two? Okay. Now let us understand the difference between parameterization and hard coding. Okay. Now let's start writing the programs. First, to understand the variable, we will write a sample program. So before we start programming, before I start coding, just let me explain the tool what I just opened. This is something called VBSedit. It's just an editor for VBScript. Okay, VBScript editor, which we have available in the market. But this is not a freeware evaluation. But even the installed freeware, it will never expire. Evaluation. Okay, it's a commercial tool. But even though you install the freeware, it will never expire. But with some limitations, it will come. You can directly download them, okay, in case if you want, or you can copy. If you get the pen drive, we can copy. If you want to download, URL is VBSedit.com. Just okay. URL is www.vbsedit.com. You will get only one screen in that, and you will get the download link. You don't need to search for it. Okay, it will just some MBs, maybe 5 or 6 MBs like that. Okay, it is. Or in case, okay, if you say that no, I can't download, then you get your pen drive, then we'll copy it, and then you'll get. Okay, so now why we need to install this editor is you can still write the program. You don't need to have this editor mandatorily. You don't need to install this mandatorily. So as I told in the very beginning, so you don't need to have a separate environment, right, for writing the language. You can still write it in a notepad. You can still write in the notepad. But the only problem is when you write in the notepad, you will not be able to differentiate between values and variables or methods, or it will be little difficult for you to understand the syntax of the methods and all. So since you are a beginner, then when you write the programs in notepad, then it will be difficult for you to trace which is method, which is value and all. You cannot understand them. But when you use the editor like this, then okay, this editors will clearly differentiate between the values and methods. And it will also give you some help information for every method that you use. So that programming will be easy for you. So once you become an expertise, you can avoid this kind of editors. But when you are a beginner, you can just install this, and then you can start writing the program. Now first, let us do one thing. Let us write the small program and see what happens. Okay, now Message box is one of the method that we do have. Message box is nothing but generally we get the pop-up and all, right? Whenever we do pop-up, just to provide the information to the user, to display the information to the user. So that is nothing but message box function. So I'm just using a message box function so that when I'm running the code, then it will give me some information what is happening and all. Now what I'm doing is I'm writing certain string to display for us. Then I'm saying, say today's match between I'm just writing the program. Just okay, I've written. I'm not writing any logic or anything. Okay. So now okay. Something like that I'm just writing. Now let me save this. To execute, you can just click on start this program, or the problem with when you start with the execution, it will start executing, but see, by it is starting with 3 seconds, right? Starting with it's waiting for 3 seconds, but that will be extended every time. Whenever you execute, first time it will start with 3 seconds, next it will take 4 seconds to start your execution, or after that 5, 6 seconds, like that it will be keep increasing. That is a limitation that you get with this, but you still have an alternate way. Instead of waiting for that much time, I will tell you that. But before that, so whatever you see there, that is nothing but the message box. Okay, so whatever you see here, that is a message box which we have written. Now whatever the text that we have written next to that message box, that text will be displayed inside the pop-up. Now what it says, first message box, today's match between CSK and Bangalore. Then Bangalore won the match. Then Bangalore has been moved to semis. So whatever the text that I have given, the same text has been displayed, no change, nothing, because I have not written any logic or any formulas or anything to convert into that. I just asked my script to display some text. Okay. Now other way to execute this is, instead of directly starting from here, after writing the programming in VBS edit, whatever the script that you want to execute, write it in VBS edit, save this. Save this where, so you can define one location where that has to be saved, and I'm just giving the location, and save the file as, I'll say variables. Then the extension of the VBScript file is VBS. Extension of the VBS file is VBScript file is .vbs. So as soon as you give the name, then that file will be saved as VBS. VBS is one of the executable file. VBS is a executable file. So what you can do is, you can just save that file, and to run this program, whatever it is, then go to the location where you have saved that. You can see this is the VBS file. Then what you need to do is just double click on that file. Since it is an executable file, as soon as you double click on that, it will start executing that file, so that whatever the program you have written inside that, then that will be executing. Okay. Now as I told you, you can still write it in the notepad, right? Now what I will do is, how we can do it, I'll just show you how we can write it in the notepad. Same thing, whatever I have written here, I'm just copying. Then open the notepad and save. So when you write like this, but can you say which is method, which is a value and all there, which is variable? Little difficult for us to differentiate. But this is just a 3 lines of code, so that you can just go line by line and understand. But when you tomorrow, in the future, we are going to learn some huge amount of programming. That means a lot of lines we are going to write. Then that will be very difficult for us to differentiate between the methods and the variables and the values and all. So that's the reason we try to avoid using notepad to write that, even though you can still write it in a notepad. Then how I can execute this? Very simple. The same approach we follow. I'm just copying the path where that has to be saved. Save this file under certain location and save as type. Select save as type as all files. Then give the name as from. I'm just giving the any name. You can give any name, no problem. I just saved it as from Notepad. Then this time you have to give the extension manually. When you are saving from VBS edit, you don't need to give the extension manually. By default, that will be saved as a VBS file. But when you are saving from Notepad, then what you need to do is you must have to select the type as all, and then extension should be given manually. But even though you have given extension as VBS, but if you select the type as txt, how that file name will be saved as Notepad from notepad.vbs.txt. That means it will remain same it as name it as a txt file only. It will save it as txt file only. So that is the reason whenever you are using Notepad and saving the VBS file, select the save as type all files and then give the file name as so and so file .vbs extension. Remember, extension is mandatory here. But when you are saving from VBS edit, you don't need to give the extension. Got that? What I am saying here? Okay, fine. Let's come back to our concept. Variables. Fine. Now, how many teams are there in that logic or in the two? One is CSK and second one is the Bangalore. And this teams I'm using in different places in the same program. Now assume that today's match between CSK and Bangalore, but the same program I need to execute tomorrow also. Okay? Or maybe I have two matches today. The first match is between CSK and Bangalore. So now I need to execute the script for first match. When I execute the script for first match, those are the values. But the same script I need to execute for second match. Maybe second match between two different teams. Maybe Mumbai and some other team. Okay, Mumbai and other team that I do have. Now what I have to do? Okay, whenever I don't want to create a different script because I need to execute script on daily basis. These values will be changing. Matches will be keep changing, right? Now to execute the same program for the second match, what I need to do is I have to come to this program. I need to open this program. Then what I should do? I need to go here and wherever the CSK has come, then I need to place Mumbai. Right? I need to place Mumbai. Then, so wherever Bangalore, right? So next match is between Mumbai and maybe Delhi. I need to find out and then do that. So wherever it has come, or DD, okay, so team 1, right? DD, something like this. So what's happening? Whenever the value is changed, I need to come to my program and then I need to understand, okay, wherever I have used the value. Here I used in 3 different places. Since, okay, you have written only 3 lines of code here, then that won't be any problem for you to change. It won't take much time for us. But it's not the same 3 lines we will be using, right? Probably we are going to extend our program. So sometimes we will write 30 lines, 40 lines or 100 lines of code also we write. Now assume that the same value is used in different places in my program. So whenever I want to update the value, what I need to do? Okay, I need to find out, I need to go through all the lines and understand where I have used this value. Then update it. Right? Getting what I am saying? That makes, some problem for me. That takes a lot of time every time. So now these values are keep changing for every execution. So finding the value and replacing it will be very difficult for me, right? So every time that will take a lot of time for me. It kills a lot of my time. What should be done in this case? This is called hard coding. Whatever we have done here, that is called hard coding. What is meant by hard coding is passing the values directly inside the program. Passing the values directly inside the script is called hard coding. Now the problem with hard coding is whenever the values are changing, then that will be difficult for me to change the values. It takes a lot of time. And sometimes what happens is when I have used in many places, maybe 15, 16 locations I have used, then if that is the case, while replacing I may miss 1 or 2 places. When I do that, then wrong values will be passed into the program and then program will be failed. That is a risk for me. So now what I need to do here, instead of doing like this, we will do in a different way. How exactly we need to do is, so instead of directly passing here, I'll say, the values whatever I'm going to use, there are 2 teams, which the other values won't get changed, like today's match between and all, that string won't get changed. Only the team names will get changed, right? For these two names, I will create 2 different locations. 2 memories I will create, memory locations. Then whatever the matches, whatever the teams are there, I will place in respected memory location. Then in my program, what I will do is, instead of passing the value directly here, I will ask my line or program to say, I'm not passing the value here. Take the value from the memory location. I will refer to that memory location. So that particular line or the program should take the value from the memory when it is being executed. You got what I'm saying? So what I need to do here is, I just need to create a memory location and store the values in that memory. So next time whenever I want to use the value in my program later, what I should do, I don't need to pass the value. I will just refer to the memory location which I have created. So next time when I'm running the script, wherever that memory location is referred, that value will be automatically passed there. So now how I can refer to that memory location? Through a variable. So variable will represent the memory location which we create. So wherever I want to use the values, first for that memory location I will give the variable, and whenever I want to use these values in my program, I will just refer the variables. So later when the script is being executed, those variables will be replaced by the values which we have stored in the memory location. You got what I'm saying? Now we need to understand how exactly I can refer, how I can create the memory location, and how we can use them, how we can refer them. Now the same whatever I have written, just same example I have given here. So but I have used the variables here. We are going to understand how we can use those variables. If you see that, I just said team 1 and team 2. Generally those are variables, but we'll come to this part, how we can declare those, how we can use those variables. But let's understand first how we'll go with one by one. First we need to define the variables and then we need to use them. Now the next one is, so we'll come to that example. First we'll understand the variables thoroughly and then we will start using them one by one. Then we discussed about variable slot. It's a memory location, and to store the values and all, in that memory location we store the values and all. Then again these variables again further named into 2 different names, or these variables are categorized into 2 types. Those are a scalar variable. The first variable type is a scalar variable. There are 2 types of variables called a scalar variable, and there is one more type. But before going to next type, just let's understand brief about the scalar. Then what it says exactly? Allows only one value at a time. When a variable is a scalar variable, it allows only one value. Then can be defined as a dynamic or constant. Dynamic means values can be updated any moment, a number of times, that's called dynamic. or it can be a constant. That means it has to allow only the value which we give in the beginning. So it should not accept any change. That's what constant means for. When you say constant, then constant should not accept any change. So the value whatever we give in the beginning, only that value should be allowed. So when you say scalar, you can make that as a dynamic or you can make that as a constant. And if you look at the third point, that is important here. What is that? Not mandatory to declare the variable before we use it. So this is an interesting point, and this is important point too. It's not a mandatory to declare the variable, scalar variable. Keep that point highlighted, okay, when you have written. I will come to this part. Next, array variable. Array variable. So when it comes to the array variable here, use it to store the collection of values or object. It should be or, not of. Okay. So whatever it is, it should be or. So collection of values or collection of objects. So that's what array means for. Then mandatory to declare before using. So when you are using arrays, you must have to define it before you use it. For scalar, it is not mandatory. For array, it is mandatory. Then zero sized. Keep that point highlighted. We will come to this part. It's a zero, nothing but an index based. Array is usually index based. Indexes always starts from 0. That's what zero size is made for. Can be dynamic or fixed. It again off. It should be or. So write or here. Okay. So can be dynamic or fixed in the size. So what is meant by size here? Depends on number of values. It takes the collection of values, right? Depends on the collection size. Number of values you have in the collection. Depends on that. Then you need to define the size. When I have 10 values, then I have to define the array with certain size, so that it can take only this many values. Depends on the size of the value which you define. It allows this many values. So that size can be, you can make that size as a dynamic, or you can make that size as a fixed constant in the size, not in the values, in the size. Okay. So just keep these points with you, and we will discuss, we need to discuss about all this, okay, coming forward. Dynamic means can be changed. Change is not a constant here. Now, so we said, we just discussed about the variable. So again we discussed that we have to define the variables on the. So before we start using them, just understand how exactly we can discuss the, how we can declare the variables. We have various types in declaration. One is private variable, and second one is public dim constant. Public, private, dim, constant. That's how we can declare the variables in VBScript. Okay. Then, so while declaring, you can just note down. When I have 10 variables, you can declare the variables, each variable in a different line, one variable, one line, or you can declare multiple variables in same line. Okay, how exactly that can be done is, let us see how exactly we can declare the variables. Private team 1, private, team 2. So now two variables I am using, two variables are declared in two different lines. So each variable can be declared in one line, single line, okay, in different lines you can declare. Similarly, you can declare, remember each variable should be separated by comma, and when you are declaring in one line, that same statement whatever you are using for declaration, statement should not be repeated for every variable. Statement should be written in the beginning and then variable 1 comma variable 2 comma 3 comma 4, you can write like that. Similarly for public also same, public or dim. Okay, so now there is no difference between dim and public, but difference between private and public is dim is one of the common way of declaring the variables. No difference between public and dim, but there is a difference between public and private. And when you make a variable as a public, and in this context no difference, but the actual difference between public and private is when you make a variable as a public inside one class. Okay, we have something called class objects in the VBScript. Class is nothing but group of methods, group of functions again. So when you define a variable inside one class, that variable can be accessed in other class also. So that means accessibility of that variable, you are making it as a public. So other classes can take the variable whatever you have defined. It's a public property, not as private property. Whereas when you make a variable as a private, then that variable is private property of that particular class. Other classes cannot access the variable. That is the difference between private and public. Okay, I did not tell about constant here. Let's understand why. Okay, I did not tell that. This is not applicable for constant, because constant, when you declare the variable is in public, private or dim, those variables are dynamic. That means values can be changed at any moment. It's not like the value whatever I give in the beginning, it's not like the same value should be taken at the throughout the code. So based on certain conditions and all, you can change in between. But constant is not like that. Whatever the value that you give in the beginning, the same value should be carried throughout the program. Changing the value in between the program is not acceptable when it is constant variable. That's what constant means for. So the whatever I have made, like declaring multiple variables in the same line is not applicable for constant. In constant, you can declare only one variable in one line. Okay, so we will come to that part, how we can make the variables are constant. But there is an interesting point coming up. Say variable declaration is optional in VBScript. That makes a little interesting here. So far we said we have to declare the variables and all before we use it and all. But now the statement what is being made is here variable declaration is optional, which means that when I want to use a variable, I don't need to register that before. I don't need to register it. What I need to do, I can directly use the variables inside the program. But in other languages, this is not a right thing. Whenever you want to use a variable, first you register that, then only you can use it. Otherwise, no. But in VBScript, it is not like that. You can use them directly without registering. Okay, so we'll see this practical part tomorrow. Okay, we'll stop here today, and same variables and all we will see tomorrow, because of the time I'm not able to cover that, but the same thing we'll see. Okay, so tomorrow we will see how we can use scalars and how we can use arrays and what are the standards and all we need to follow. Same program whatever I have written, how we can convert into variables and uses of variables and all. Clear whatever we have discussed? Let me know if you don't get anything, so you can just stop me and you can ask the questions, but don't be silent when you don't get. Okay. Fine. I will share this PPT. You don't need to write. I will share this PPT with you. This PPT is prepared for you only. Okay. So I will share to your mail ID. Okay. Fine. So I need to write some extra notes for this. I'm just giving a high level points here. I will write some extra notes and will share with you. No problem.